Imagine two people, same job, same salary, same city, same paycheck hitting their account every 2 weeks. 10 years later, one of them has $340,000 quietly sitting in an investment account. The other has $1,200 in savings and a vague sense that something went wrong somewhere. They just can't figure out where. The difference wasn't income, it wasn't luck, it wasn't even discipline, really. It was one decision, made once, about what to do with a single $1,000. And here's the part that nobody tells you. The decision isn't about how much you save, it's about the order you save it in. Get the order right, and that $1,000 stops being a number in your account and starts becoming a machine that builds wealth in the background of your life. Get it wrong, and you'll do everything right on paper and still end up exactly where you started. By the end of this video, you'll know the exact sequence, and you'll understand why most people never figure it out, not because they're bad with money, but because nobody ever showed them what the money was actually supposed to do once they had it. Stay with me, because in about 4 minutes, I'm going to show you a number that completely changes how you think about the $200 a month you've been telling yourself you can't afford to invest. Let's start with the version most people are living right now, because you've probably felt this. You get paid, you cover rent, groceries, subscriptions, maybe you go out once or twice, and then you tell yourself whatever's left at the end of the month, that goes into savings. Sounds reasonable, responsible even. Here's what actually happens. Nothing is left. Or there's $27, and $27 never builds into anything because next month the same thing happens, and the month after that. Now here's where most people stop and blame themselves. They think, I just need more willpower, more discipline, maybe a better budgeting app. But researchers looked at over 200 studies on financial behavior and found something that should completely change how you think about this. Knowing more about money, financial literacy, understanding interest rates, knowing what an index fund is, explains only 0.1% of why people actually save or don't save. 0.1%. The other 99.9% comes down to psychology, environment, and the systems you have in place or don't. Which means the problem was never information. You already know you should be saving more. The problem is the system. And right now, for most people, there isn't one. And the consequences of that missing system are brutal in a way that doesn't show up until it's almost too late. The median retirement account balance in America right now is around $87,000. The middle number, half of people have more, half have less. Social Security pays an average of about $1,900 a month. Put those two things together, and you're looking at income that won't cover a one-bedroom apartment in most U.S. cities, let alone an actual life. That's not a future you have to accept, but it will happen by default unless you understand what I'm about to show you. Here's the part nobody explains clearly. The $1,000 rule has two layers, and you need both of them. Layer 1 is the retirement math. There's a framework that financial researchers call the $1,000 a month rule. For every $1,000 per month you want in retirement income beyond Social Security, you need somewhere between $240,000 and $300,000 saved. That's based on a 4 to 5% withdrawal rate, the range researchers consider a sustainable draw on a long-term portfolio. Let's make that real. You want $3,000 a month in retirement? You need $720,000 to $900,000 saved. Want $5,000? You're looking at $1.2 million to $1.5 million. Now, I know what just happened in your head. That number felt impossible. Most people hit that wall and stop thinking about it entirely. Here's where you keep going instead. Layer 2 is the mechanism that makes those numbers reachable. And it's not hustle, it's not a high income, it's time, and what time does to money when you give it a system to work inside. Here's that number I promised you earlier. $200 a month. That's it. Invested consistently at the S&P 500's historical average return of roughly 10% annually, and yes, past performance doesn't guarantee future results, but this is the historical baseline.
$200 a month over 35 years becomes somewhere around $640,000. Not because $200 a month is impressive, because time does the heavy lifting when you give it something to work with. That's the rule. $1,000 saved the right way doesn't stay $1,000. It becomes the foundation of an income-generating machine, but only if you deploy it in the right order. And this is exactly where almost everyone gets it wrong. Think of the framework as a waterfall. Money flows down through each level in sequence. You fill one level before moving to the next. Mess up the order, and you lose thousands of dollars in free money and tax advantages that most people don't even know exist. Here's what skipping the order actually looks like in real life. Meet someone like Marcus, 29 years old, making $55,000 a year, finally decides to get serious about investing. He opens a brokerage account, puts $200 a month into an S&P 500 index fund. Feels good, feels like progress. 6 months later, his car needs $1,400 in repairs. He has no emergency fund, so he pulls the money out of his investment account, pays a penalty, loses the compounding he'd built, starts over. That cycle repeats for 3 years before he figures out what he did wrong. The waterfall would have prevented all of it. Level 1, the financial floor. Before a single dollar goes into any investment, you need 3 to 6 months of essential expenses sitting in a high-yield savings account. Not your checking account, not under a mattress, a high-yield savings account, which as of 2025 pays somewhere around 4 to 5% annually at most online banks. That's not an investment, it's insurance. It's the reason Marcus could have handled that car repair without blowing up his portfolio. Level 2, the free money you might be leaving behind. If your employer offers a 401k with a match and you are not capturing that match, you are walking past free money every single paycheck. Your employer is literally offering to add dollars to your account, and most people don't take the full amount. For 2025, you can contribute up to $23,500 to a 401k. For 2026, that rises to $24,500. Even if you can't hit those numbers, get the match first, always. That's the highest guaranteed return available to most working people.
Level 3, the IRA. Once you've captured the match, the next most tax-advantaged vehicle most people have access to is an individual retirement account. In 2025, you can contribute up to $7,000. Roth or traditional depends on your tax situation, but the short version is this. If you think you're in a lower tax bracket now than you will be in retirement, Roth tends to win. Tax-free growth. No required minimum distributions. For most people earning between $30,000 and $80,000, Roth is where the long-term advantage lives. Level 4, everything else. Whatever remains goes into a taxable brokerage account, low-cost index funds, broad ETFs, total market exposure. You don't need to be clever here. Research consistently shows that the vast majority of professional fund managers underperform the market over 15-year periods. If they can't beat it with full-time teams and billion-dollar resources, we probably can't either. And here's the thing, we don't need to. Staying boring and staying consistent is the actual edge. That's the waterfall. Emergency fund, employer match, IRA, index funds. In that order, every time. Now I need to tell you something uncomfortable, because you could follow everything I just said perfectly, the right accounts, the right order, the right amounts, and still fail completely. Not because of the math, because of your own brain. Here's what actually happens. You save up $1,000, you feel accomplished, and then something comes up, a trip, a sale, a stressful week, and that $1,000 is gone. Not because you're bad with money, because the system that governs your decisions day to day never actually changed. Behavioral researchers have found that saving moves through 3 stages: planning, initiation, and habit formation. Most people fail before the first deposit is ever made. They plan to save, they intend to save, they just never initiate. And intention without structure is just a wish with a deadline that keeps moving.
Here's the thing about willpower that most financial advice ignores entirely. It's a finite resource. Every decision you make during the day, what to eat, what to wear, whether to reply to that email, draws from the same mental tank. By evening, that tank is nearly empty, and that is exactly when most financial decisions get made. Tired, depleted, susceptible to whatever feels easiest. So the system has to do the work, not you, the system. This is the most powerful thing you can do with the $1,000 rule. Automate it entirely. Set up automatic transfers to move the money the day after your paycheck hits, before you see the money, before you feel it, before your brain has time to generate creative reasons why you need it for something else right now. Automation creates the kind of consistency that willpower simply cannot sustain over months and years. It removes the monthly decision of whether to save, and removing a decision is more powerful than making a better decision because you can't make a worse one if the choice no longer exists. The best savings decision you will ever make is one you never have to make again. There's a second psychological mechanism worth understanding here: loss aversion. Behavioral economics research consistently shows that people feel the pain of losing money roughly 2 to 2.5 times more intensely than the pleasure of gaining the same amount. That's why watching $1,000 leave your account feels like loss, even when it's going somewhere that benefits you deeply. Here's the reframe. You're not losing $1,000. You're buying back future freedom. Every dollar that moves into that investment account is a vote for the version of you that doesn't have to work a job they hate in 20 years. Every dollar is a future hour that belongs to you, not to an employer, not to a bill, not to a moment of stress spending at 11 p.m. One more thing that actually works: track it visually. Research shows that seeing tangible progress, even small numbers moving in the right direction, is one of the most powerful behavioral motivators that exists. You don't need a complicated spreadsheet. A note on your phone updated once a month is enough. Watch the number grow. Your brain will start protecting it.
Here's the last piece, and I think it's the most important one. There's a difference between someone who is trying to save money and someone who simply is the kind of person who saves money. That sounds like a small distinction. It isn't. The story you tell yourself about who you are shapes your automatic decisions, the ones you make without thinking, without deliberating, without needing willpower at all. Identity doesn't follow behavior. Behavior follows identity. So start saying it like a fact, not an aspiration, a current truth. I'm the kind of person who invests before I spend. I'm the kind of person who has a system. Because the moment you made that first automated transfer, the moment you filled level 1 of the waterfall, it became true. You already are that person. You just haven't been talking to yourself like one yet. Think back to those two people I described at the beginning. Same job, same salary, same city. The difference between them was never the income. It was never some secret investment strategy or lucky break. It was the order they followed, the automation they set up, and the identity they decided to carry. The $1,000 rule isn't about the number. $1,000 is just the unit of measurement. The rule is about order, automation, and identity. Get those three things right, and that first $1,000 stops being a savings goal and becomes the first brick in something that builds quietly in the background of your life, month after month, year after year, until one day you check your account and realize the machine is already running and you barely had to touch it. Your only job this week is one thing: figure out where your next $1,000 is going. Not your full retirement strategy, not a 30-year plan, just the next $1,000. Decide deliberately, follow the waterfall, automate the transfer. That single decision puts you ahead of the overwhelming majority of people who are still saving whatever's left over instead of spending whatever's left after saving. The wealth isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just compounds, quietly, until it doesn't have to be quiet anymore. If this gave you something you'll actually use, subscribe. Every week, I'd break down one more rule that quietly separates the people who build wealth from the people who just earn it. Drop your waterfall level in the comments. I want to know where you're starting from. I'll see you in the next one.